Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. That's, as Jew Who Has It All tweets or toots this morning via Mastodon. Wishes for a happy Yom St. Valentine HaKodesh Sameach to all Christian friends and followers. For those not familiar, this is Christian Tu B'Av. And just wanted everybody to understand that. It's a very interesting perspective. I really do recommend that you follow along. The premise, of course, I've explained before, being it's Jew Who Has It All on Mastodon at babka.social. How do you like that? She also does work on the Bird site, I think, still work there if you want to follow along there. But great and interesting premise from the, unfortunately false premise that tweeting as though she were the principal of a public school in a majority Jewish America and what it might be like for the minority Christian students to have their holidays handled from that perspective. Very interesting. Anyway, plenty to catch up on today. And hey, John Shiflett is with us this morning with a right on the money tweet about our launch of the day's program. It is Valentine's Day, or so we are told. If you or if you're not disturbed by the weird acceptance of secular celebration of a religious saint's day, but we tried to turn it into something, I guess, non-religious so that you can buy Hallmark cards for it. I don't know. That doesn't require that it be non-religious or that it be secular in nature. It really isn't secular in nature, but anyway, that's really the point of the Jew Who Has It All Mastodon/Twitter feed. So I just thought I would remind you of all of that. And as we begin the show, we get the thumbs up from Justice Putnam, who's running things, technologically speaking, out in Netroots Radio headquarters on the West Coast. So up early every day to do this and reminding us of the various things that he's spotted in the news today that we haven't gotten a chance to mention, including the fact that the former guy is apparently telling people, I missed the write-up of this story, but I've seen mention of the story, that he's the only reason he had those empty folders marked with top secret and classified information, etc. He had taken them with him. He uses them to block the lights from, I don't know what exactly, on his nightstand, the nightlight, the clock. Well, something was keeping him awake, and he decided that he would, I guess, empty out the contents of a classified information folder and then use the folder to block the light. I mean, he probably was using it to block the light. It's just extraordinarily dumb and a terrible story, and what happened to the contents of the folder, and it's no excuse really, and probably any sort of paper would have done it, and supposedly you're a billionaire, and can't you get it so that your clock isn't keeping you awake at night with your own paper? Let's say it was not something classified at all. Did you really need to steal government materials to cover up the clock? You could probably afford your own thing, maybe the eye shades. It's not a bad idea for you to cover up those ridiculous baggy, beady things that you've got. Anyway, so a bad excuse all around, and nobody should really take that for anything more than the comedy value of it. Also, he sends this note along. It says, maybe cell phone reception is spotty because we shot cell phone balloons out of the sky. Is that happening? Are we shooting? Did they make cell phone balloons? Is that a thing? I don't even know. I can't tell half the time whether it's serious or not because the world is rather crazy. And some of these things may turn out to be true. But all right, if I get some further information, I can share it with you. There's plenty of other things we have to catch up on, including the fact that, there's no real way to deal with this on the show other than to throw it into the morning post. We are, in fact, once again, under the cloud of a mass shooting, and I think we've pointed this out before, technically speaking, we're probably almost always under the cloud of a mass shooting because someone somewhere has shot at least 4 people the day before any given show. It's just, will it rise to the level of one that the news media will remind us that we ought to be concerned about? In this case, yes, because it was on a college campus, Michigan State University to be specific, and latest reports put the numbers at something in the neighborhood of 3 people killed, 5 people injured critically, whatever that means. If you've been shot, that's pretty critical. So best wishes, I guess, is all we can do for recovery. And hope, thoughts and prayers, right? Of course, for a mass shooting. It's the 950 billionth school shooting in the last hour, basically. And we go through this over and over again. It's also happened just yesterday evening, which would be the day before. Not only is today Valentine's Day, but in certain parts of the country by certain people who remember such things, it's remembered as the anniversary of the Parkland, Florida, Marjorie Stone Douglas High School shooting as well. But there's an anniversary almost every day because there's a shooting almost every day. And we tend to ignore the ones where we can write it off as, well, somebody got mad at a bar and started shooting a bunch of people, like as though that were not worth worrying about. But in this country, it's barely worth worrying about because we're insane. And apparently the Constitution is, in fact, a suicide pact. And that's where we're left with all of this. Okay. Well, I guess I don't want to give out too much or spend too much time on or give too much information out about the latest shooting because, of course, things are still developing and the information tends to be wrong early on, but it's been about 12 hours that they've had to digest this thing. And in case you were wondering, it doesn't look like the gunman, who, of course, ended it all by shooting himself, was a student at the school, in case that makes a difference to you. I mean, maybe he was. He's just considerably older than most students. Apparently about in his early 40s. They named the guy. You can read all about it. I'll even give you a link to do it. All the victims, though, were students from Michigan State. And so I don't know whether there's any development in terms of motive or what have you. But right now it's just a bunch of triggering descriptions of what the students did when they heard the noise of the guns and the various ways in which they decided to deal with their panic. And, I don't think it helps us any to discuss that. As things are more thoroughly digested, if there are items that we can add to the fact that it's something other than, well, another mass shooting. And yes, the shooter killed himself at the end. And maybe we come to grips at some point with some sort of motive. But if it's student on student, we make certain assumptions. Otherwise, a different set of assumptions obtain. And, it could be anything at this point. So we'll wait and see. And instead focus on other issues that we really need to catch up on. One that I'll throw in out of order, I guess. Out of order, There's no set order, but there were some items of business I wanted to get to today. We'll get to them in a second. But first I wanted to read this from Vice, which is always a problematic source a little bit for me. But generally speaking, we can sort through the materials and decide what's worth using from Vice. This confirms a suspicion expressed to me by, I don't remember who. It was somebody, I don't remember where the conversation took place. It might have been, might have been here at home. It might have been my mom, something in discussion. Somebody suggested to me at some point that this conflict between the College Board over the AP African American Studies course and the state of Florida in the form of its governor, Ron DeSantis, might not be on the up and up. That it might have been the case that. And the College Board attempted to make the case that this was so within a couple of days, but did so very ineffectively, saying, oh, well, we had these changes for the AP African American Studies course planned anyway, or certain changes planned anyway. And really what happened here is the Florida governor jumped out ahead of it and said that he had demanded these changes when we had in fact made these changes. But then, as it turned out, there were more demands for more changes that the College Board says that they did not make, but that it wasn't a situation in which the governor of Florida made certain demands on the College Board and the College Board complied with them, but rather, an opportunity taken by the governor of Florida to jump out ahead of a scheduled change and pretend that it was happening because he had made these demands. And someone suggested to me that that might be the case. And lo, it turns out that the College Board's claim is that it is so. Vice's headline on this is, Florida straight up lied about AP African American Studies course, College Board says. That may be about the timing of the changes. It may also be about the content of the course. Let's find out what Paul Blest has to report here for Vice, the subhead on the piece. We deeply regret not immediately announcing the Florida Department of Education's slander, the College Board said on Saturday. The organization that sets advanced placement curricula came out swinging at Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, saying in a statement published Saturday, which is a great day to try and beat a sitting governor with news coverage. Absolutely the worst, of course. And if there's a worse Sunday or worse Saturday than the one prior to Super Bowl Sunday, I'm not sure what it might be, unless Christmas falls on a Sunday that year. Anyway, right. So they came out swinging on Saturday, where no one was watching, that the state's Department of Education slandered its AP African American Studies course and accusing the DeSantis administration of lying about its communications with the College Board. The College Board also disputed that it had diluted the course and made contemporary topics like Black Lives Matter and reparations optional only after the Florida governor said the class would be banned from being taught in Florida schools. The DeSantis administration has rejected the course, or had rejected the course, as part of a crusade against what it called woke education. And you can't have people who are educators being awake and aware of issues and things happening in contemporary American society or history. That will be a huge problem. They might tell the students about it. Okay, let's see. At any rate, this, as part of his crusade against woke education, then they, of course, the DeSantis administration, that is, celebrated the College Board's revised curriculum released earlier this month, but the College Board alleged in its statement that DeSantis, who is rumored to be considering a presidential bid, of course, always intended to shut down the course for political reasons. The College Board statement says that the conversation over the AP African American Studies curriculum has moved from healthy debate to misinformation. What do you know? And the organization needed to clear the air and set the record straight on Saturday. We deeply regret not immediately announcing the Florida Department of Education's slander, magnified by the DeSantis administration's subsequent comments that African American studies lacks educational value, said the statement, which is only attributed to the College Board as a whole. Our failure to raise our voice betrayed black scholars everywhere and those who have long toiled to build this remarkable field. Yes, that's another good reason why it was imperative for you to work faster. The College Board's statement came after the Florida Department of Education released a letter last week detailing communications with the College Board regarding the content of the course going back to January of 2022. The Florida Department of Education said in the letter that it was in frequent contact with the College Board regarding the course, but the College Board contradicted that on Saturday, but it happened on Saturday, so no one watched, saying the phone calls attempting to engage with Florida on its concerns were absent of substance and rather focused on vague, uninformed questions such as, does the course promote Black Panther thinking? That's a great question. Duh. While it has been claimed that the College Board was in frequent dialogue with Florida about the content of AP African American Studies, this is a false and politically motivated charge. The College Board said, "We had no negotiations about the content of this course with Florida or any other state, nor did we receive any requests, suggestions, or feedback." DeSantis announced earlier this year, before the changes, that Florida would reject the AP African American Studies class because it was allegedly furthering a, quote, political agenda. "We believe in teaching kids facts and how to think, but we don't believe they should have an agenda imposed on them. When you try to use black history to shoehorn in queer theory, you are clearly trying to use that for political purposes," DeSantis said in January. The dispute over AP African American History course is just the latest in DeSantis' attempts to restore what he's described as a more traditional K-12 and higher education, which critics have described as more like an attempt at conservative indoctrination, which, of course, would ordinarily be a problem for someone who's against indoctrination, but it's not that he's against indoctrination. He's against your indoctrination with these ideas. You should undergo his indoctrination with these ideas over here instead. Under DeSantis, Florida has passed laws banning public schools from teaching what it's branded, quote, critical race theory, which it isn't, as well as the discussion of sex and gender in elementary schools. DeSantis also appointed 6 right-wing activists to the board of New College of Florida, a public liberal arts school, in an attempt to make the college into what his chief of staff has called the Hillsdale of the South, a reference to the arch-conservative private college in Michigan. The trustees fired the college's president and named as its interim president former DeSantis education chief Richard Corcoran, a Republican former state House speaker who once described education as 100% ideological and a sword to wage war for conservative values. The College Board claimed that it repeatedly pushed the State Department of Education to detail specific feedback and concerns with the course to no avail. "We have made the mistake of treating the Florida Department of Education with the courtesy we always accord to an education agency. But they have instead exploited this courtesy for their political agenda," the group wrote. Oh, well, what do you know? "After each written or verbal exchange with them, as a matter of professional protocol, we politely thanked them for their feedback and contributions, although they had given none." But I guess if this process was ongoing for a year, you probably should not have been caught flat-footed in your response to their so-called slander and released your statement on a Saturday. The College Board also said that the agency leaked the letter to the media, which was first reported by the Tucker Carlson-founded conservative news site The Daily Caller, in order to claim credit for changes to the course and the removal of terms such as systemic marginalization and intersectionality as part of an effort to engineer a political win for DeSantis. "This is not true," the College Board said. "The notion that we needed Florida to enlighten us that these terms are politicized in several states is ridiculous." I guess they're agreeing that they're politicized, though. The Florida Department of Education did not immediately respond to a request for comment from Vice News, and that's it. There you go. How do you like that? Well, now you know all there is there to know, at least from Vice anyway. And then there's links to 100 different things that are unrelated, but that are supposed to, I guess, be eye candy and call us in and force us to click on things for profit for someone else. We're distracted, but we'll move away. However, I did happen to see something somewhere along the line yes, there it is. George Santos reportedly has yet another alias, except this is actually kind of old news. I guess maybe this is written by Paul Blest. It's his drag queen identity. Okay, I thought that there was some more news about that, but apparently there's not. Okay, so they fooled us. Our attention was diverted briefly to other content that means nothing. So I'll wait for the next segment to begin on this, but I wanted to throw out there that we should be reading a little bit about Anna Paulina Luna and her likeness, I suppose, to George Santos, in that she too comes with something of an invented background for herself, an invention and reinvention story, which is probably more frequently the case among Republican members of Congress, I would guess. Anyway, maybe some Democrats as well. Who knows? But I don't know. So far, the most incredible stories are coming out of the Republican side. Something I didn't get to add yesterday after telling you all about what might be a burgeoning crisis for Moldova, I wanted to add that I had seen a report in The Hill that morning that may or may not be related to that. Well, it's related, though, in that it has something to do with Russia, and Russia, of course, has something to do with the Moldova story. But this is rather concerning, really. Headline, U.S. tells citizens to leave Russia immediately. Oh, my. So, like, everybody should evacuate Russia. What's going on? Julia Mueller writes this piece for The Hill. The U.S. on Monday issued a top-level advisory telling American citizens to leave Russia immediately and cease travel to the country as Russia's war against neighboring Ukraine continues, citing risks of harassment and wrongful detention for Americans specifically. Right, after the whole crisis with Brittany Griner, we don't need anybody else being held hostage by the Russians. But there's an enormous amount of Americans living in, traveling to, doing business in Russia. It's going to be awfully difficult to get all of them out and to stay away for the foreseeable future. The U.S. on Monday, we already read that part. They issued their top-level advisory. Do not travel to Russia due to the unpredictable consequences of the unprovoked full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russian military forces, the potential for harassment, and the singling out of U.S. citizens for detention by Russian government security officials, the arbitrary enforcement of local law, limited flights into and out of Russia, the embassy's limited ability to assist U.S. citizens in Russia, and the possibility of terrorism, reads the alert. U.S. citizens residing or traveling in Russia should depart immediately, exercise increased caution due to the risk of wrongful detentions. That's got to be exciting to know that that's the case, and to head for the airports and to immediately, of course, have to confront petty authorities who have the right to detain you at the airport. That's got to be rather frightening. Well, it's a place you don't want to be. The warning marks the highest level, level 4. I mean, level 4, my goodness, that certainly requires dramatic music. I don't know what level 4 means, but apparently it's the highest level of alerts issued by the State Department, which range from exercising precaution to ceasing all travel. It comes as the Russia-Ukraine war nears its first anniversary on February 24th, so 10 days from now, and amid concerns that Moscow is amassing troops for an offensive that could coincide with that one-year mark. It seems like an oddly, obvious thing to do. You would think that militaries would shy away from such things, but I guess sometimes the symbolism is too much to pass up, I guess, but maybe they're just symbolism laden as a society, but you would think you would want maybe a little bit more of an element of surprise than that. But, maybe not. If you're just trying to do it by brute force, maybe that's part of the symbolism. Yeah, we're coming. Yeah, it's on February 24th. What are you going to do about it? That's the sort of thing they might want to do. So where were we with this? All right. There might be a new offensive. That's one of the reasons they want people out. The U.S. urged its citizens to leave the country just days after the invasion, and again with a security warning in September as Moscow ordered a call-up of reservist forces to renew its advances against Ukraine. Reuters reported Monday that Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov dismissed the U.S. warning, saying it's not a new thing. The word of caution about wrongful detentions follows the high-profile prisoner swap of Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout for U.S. basketball star Brittany Griner, who had been sentenced to 9 years in a Russian penal colony on drug possession charges. Griner's trial and sentencing were decried by the U.S., of course, and elevated the plight of former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan, who is being held by Moscow on suspicion of spying. And so just keeping in mind, in case you think this doesn't apply to you or someone you know who might be traveling in, living in, moving through Russia, It doesn't have to apply to you. They just have to say it applies to you. They might take perverse pleasure in lying about whether or not it applies to you or this person that you know, and just making trouble based on that. And interestingly, it occurred to me when they mentioned that the last such warning came coinciding with the call-up of, did they say reservists or what, but draftees, really. They were, it says call-up of reservist forces, but then they were also conscripting forces, maybe not in Moscow, but elsewhere around the country. And, I mean, if they're willing to snatch you up and just say, slap some false espionage charges against you or plant drugs on you or whatever it is, and just say that you violated the law and hold you for those reasons, I don't think anybody has ever done this, but given the way they treat their own troops there in Russia, I mean, they might be interested just for the trolling triggering value of it. Snatch up an American and say, you've been conscripted into the Russian armed forces, and we're going to slap a uniform on you and put a gun in your hand. And if you choose not to fire at the Ukrainians, they'll fire at you just the same because you're wearing our uniform. So, it's up to you. Kill yourself or don't. But, from now on, you're a Russian soldier, and if you die, we're burying you in a mass grave and never returning you to the United States. Don't try to pull any stunts, or Igor over here will kill you. I mean, what do you do about that? They could make up anything, or if it gets found out, they could say this guy volunteered for the Russian forces. There are such Americans who actually do that, as foolish as it is. All right, we're a couple of seconds behind. I got carried away in my thinking about this crazy situation that could develop in Russia. Hopefully it won't. Probably it won't, but, it's an outlaw regime. So anyway, we'll be exiting at a different point in the music and trying to fix it in post, as they say in the business that we're not actually in. When we return, we'll catch up on this Anna Paulina Luna character. Hi everybody, it's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. This will be some interesting editing I have to do later on. Okay, a couple of things to catch up on before we move on. First of all, John Shiflett has also shared this interesting piece with us on the, because it is, of course, Yom St. Valentine HaKodesh Sameach. That does crack me up. And it is also apparently February 14th. It's not just St. Valentine's Day, It is I didn't know. It is also the Saints' Day for Saints Cyril and Methodius. Is that right? Am I pronouncing that? I don't know. I'm not up on my saints. He says some celebrate them as secular saints, promoting literacy and literature. And I mean, everybody loves literacy and literature, except Florida, which does not, and also about 6 or 7 other states as well that are emulating Florida and hoping that they'll become the patron saints of MAGA Republicans. But it says here, there's a whole link for more on the secular Cyril and Methodius Day. Methodius? Or Methodius? I don't know. What could it possibly be? Check this out. There is a thread which marks the 2023 celebration of the day. I don't know if there are any pronunciation guides, but we'll go over there and look. Well, it begins with this. It is Cyril and Methodius. I have no idea. I mean, that's kind of a contrived pronunciation, but since it occurs to me that I don't know what I'm talking about, My first immediate worry is it's a spoken medium. I must be speaking it wrong. Well, anyway, here's a thread to tell you what this Festival of Languages, Learning, and International Friendship is about and how to celebrate it if you want to. Let's do it. What do you say? Use this thread to wish everyone a happy C&M Day. That's much easier to pronounce. And all such similar chatter. If you want a video explanation of what's going on here, I made one in 2015. Elsewise, please read on. I think we're reading a UK person here. Yep, it's in the URL. Okay. If you want to donate to a charity today, how about that? Room to Read's direct donation link is provided here. And you're encouraged, I guess, by the author of this piece to do that. What the hell am I looking at here? There's some sort of wild alphabet here. Which alphabet is this? I don't recognize it. Let's see. Here's the FAQs. What is C&M Day? This is using the full names that we don't know whether we're pronouncing correctly. As celebrated by Exilians. Is that right? Exilians. My goodness. I don't know what I'm talking about here. And many others. Cyril and Methodius, maybe. Day is a festival of literature, learning, languages, and linguistics, and alliteration. It's an alternative or additional celebration to the feast day of St. Valentine, not as an anti-Valentine's project, but providing people another choice of celebration for the day. And I mean, if you're a saint, why should you get shortchanged, right? I mean, geez. Geez, for real here. Why not? I mean, what? It doesn't shortchange St. Valentine to say, hey, look, if it's these guys' saints' days, they probably deserve it. Well, anyway, how do you celebrate it? Read a book. That's a good idea. Hug a friendly linguist, with their consent, of course. Tell people about the day, etc. Well, anyway, why do this? It's fun. There's all sorts of fun reasons. Let's say, is religion important here? I guess probably not. Let's see. There's a few points here. We'll figure out a little bit about these guys. We've claimed the day in an entirely non-denominational fashion, claim the organizers here, as happened to many other saints' days. So there's no religious prerequisite for celebrating it. Cyril and Methodius were, of course, Christians, as were almost all people in their cultural place and context. But their work included many fields combined with or outside purely religious functions, including diplomacy, law, and languages. We, of course, respect that these saints do have a particular religious context and function for people in some traditions, but we think it's possible to celebrate some of the ethos of the things for which they are patrons without being disrespectful to those contexts. If you disagree, I guess, let me know. Well, anyway, it says here, you've got the date wrong. Cyril and Methodius's day is celebrated on February 14th in the Catholic and Anglican traditions. The Orthodox Church, as we all know, has a totally different calendar, and they celebrate their feast at other times of year. Why can't you just celebrate Valentine's Day? I don't know. It says here, not everyone wants to, for all sorts of reasons. Valentine's Day tends to involve heavy commercial promotion. So I guess that's their reasoning here. And of course, so not everybody is interested in celebrating romantic relationships for various reasons. So who were these guys? They were apostles to the Slavs. They were Greek saints in the 9th century AD. And of course, they're Greek saints now as well. But this is when they first became saints. They first became Greek a little bit earlier, and then saints a little later, but both presumably in the 9th century AD, unless they were born at that special time, which allowed them to span the centuries, but I just don't know. They're primarily known for the creation of I don't even know what this is. It's an alphabet, though. The glagolitic, stupid pronunciation, I hate you. Glagolitic, maybe, alphabet. That's the first alphabet designed specifically for Slavic family languages and the ancestor of modern Cyrillic, which is named after Cyril. How do you like that? We know about that. I know about the Cyrillic alphabet. I know about it. I don't know it. I know about it. I know that's what it's called. Now we know why it's called Cyrillic. That is interesting. The alphabet that's displayed here does certainly have a lot of characteristics of Cyrillic writing. A few things you can see were carried over. A few things that are very confusing, like how could you possibly have done this to yourself? There are many characters that look extraordinarily similar, and why would you do that to yourself? But it was the 9th century. What do you want them to do? They were just starting out with this stuff. So very interesting looking. Like I said, there are an enormous. This is a huge mistake, and I guess this is why it didn't catch on in the form that they presented it. Some of it is very ornate and ridiculous, and like I said, there's a couple of letters that look too similar, and frankly, there are a few symbols that would elicit laughter these days from teenagers and younger that look extraordinarily phallic, I would say, and it's the sort of thing that you might draw on somebody's desk or notebook in order to harass them, sexually speaking. Okay, well, anyway, that's probably not what they had in mind. These guys were saints, for God's sake. But anyway, let's see. We left off by reading more about them. Right? They accomplished numerous missions on behalf of the Byzantines, including to the north of the Black Sea, though most famously to Moravia, now modern Slovakia. There, they worked to create and spread a uniquely Slavic Christian tradition, drawing on both the Latin and Greek traditions of learning, but with many unique elements, like borscht, I guess, probably. Despite Moravia, how do they say that anyway, moving into the Latin sphere after their deaths, their followers moved to other Slavic nations, especially Bulgaria, from which their work influenced many Eastern Europeans to this day. To this day! This day, and especially this day because it's their day. They are the patron saints of Europe in the Catholic Church. So that's like a pretty huge responsibility. Patron saint of straw mats and weaving, that's something, it's small, but they got saints for everything. Patron saint of Europe, that's a large responsibility. So how do you like that? We learn something new every day. That was the thing you learned today. If you want some other things, just to add value to the day, well, we'll follow up with that. Okay, well, thanks. That was actually quite interesting. Thank you, John, for the interesting diversion. I don't feel like we lost any ground in this because we learned something new and cool and interesting, certainly the reference to Cyril and Cyrillic language. Poor Methodius, or whatever his name is, and maybe they couldn't figure out the pronunciation. That's why they didn't name the alphabet after him. I don't know. Methodian? No idea what they would end up calling it. Okay. I promised you some information. Some of it might even be real about this latest, maybe sort of kind of new George Santos. I have, let's see, like 2 or 3 different ways to go on this one, 2 or 3 different articles to share on it. Let's jump in first with the more comprehensive one from the Washington Post. The making, as they style it, of Anna Paulina Luna. Luna's sharp turn to the right, and her account of an isolated and impoverished childhood, and her embrace of her Hispanic heritage, have surprised some friends and family who knew her before her ascent to the U.S. House this year. Interesting. I'm a little worried about that one, about the discovery of the Hispanic heritage, only because I recall that when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez first made the scene, one of the conservative Republican critiques of her background was that friends from back in the day, back in college and earlier, say that she, one, didn't always go by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but by a nickname instead of Sandy, instead of Alexandria, and perhaps just Ocasio rather than Ocasio-Cortez, and that the accusation being that she increased her profile in the Hispanic world for electoral and political reasons, some of which is probably true of everybody. But then there's also, I guess George Santos could avail himself of the same excuse that sometimes, in the Latine, we'll say, communities, those with hyphenated surnames in particular have the opportunity to add, drop, and manipulate the use of the name in such a way, hopefully not that they're obscuring their identity completely, but can be referred to in different ways among different portions of the community that might become confusing to the Anglos and look like you're hiding something when in fact you're acting fairly normally. Anyway, let's jump into this. Jacqueline Almany and Alice, Crites, I don't know how you pronounce the name, Crites. Why do I even bother? I don't know. It's just all apologies. Okay, illustrated with an interesting photo of Anna Paulina Luna, seen here in this photo before President Biden's State of the Union address, waiting around in the statuary hall area before the address, I guess, and dressed like a comic book villain, which is like the new trend among Republicans. Of course, we were all baffled by Murdery Trader Green's weird costume, which Bruce McFarland had forwarded me some thing on Mastodon the other day saying that the going theory was that she was dressed up as X-Men character Emma Frost, which I think is a joke, but maybe it isn't. I don't know. Is it appropriate? Is there something Emma Frost did or does in the comic that makes any sense for Murdery Trader Green to even know about who she is? Or was she just dressed as a weird white queen and just, or I don't know, or dressed as a balloon? I still don't know what she was doing, but okay. Well, anyway, I thought I'd throw that in there. Back to Anna Paulina Luna dressed up in the, I would say sort of, Batman villain sort of look that she's got going on here. It's really weird. You got to see it for yourself. There's no describing it. But now the article. 12 years before she was elected as the first Mexican-American woman to represent Florida in Congress. Mexican-Americans, they do make their way to Florida. But there's, a higher concentration in the, I guess, Texas, Arizona, California border area. But in this case, Florida. Anna Paulina Luna was, 12 years prior, serving at Whiteman Air Force Base. That's right, Whiteman Air Force Base in Warrensburg, Missouri, where friends said she described herself as alternatively, ready, Middle Eastern, okay, Jewish, that's Middle Eastern, or Eastern European, which is not so much Middle Eastern as European, Western Eastern, actually. Okay, known then by her given last name of Meyerhofer. Huh, that's different. M-A-Y-E-R, like the bologna, M-A-Y-E-R-H-O-F-E-R. All right. Luna, as we now know her, sported designer clothing and expressed support for then-President Barack Obama. All right. Interesting. By the time she ran for Congress as a Republican, she had changed her last name and her political affiliation, or changed her last name to Luna in what she said was an homage to her mother's family. A staunch advocate for gun rights, she cited on the campaign trail a harrowing childhood that left her, quote, battle-hardened. Wow. She said she and her mother had little extended family as she grew up in low-income neighborhoods in Southern California with a father in and out of incarceration. She said she experienced a traumatizing home invasion when she was serving in the Air Force in Missouri. Luna's sharp turn to the right, her account of an isolated and impoverished childhood, and her embrace of her Hispanic heritage have come as a surprise to some friends and family who knew her before her ascent to the U.S. House last year. A cousin who grew up with Luna said she was regularly included in family gatherings, so apparently not that isolated after all. Her roommate in Missouri had no recollection of the so-called home invasion Luna detailed, describing instead a break-in at their shared apartment when they were not home, an incident confirmed by police records. I mean, that is an invasion of your home, but it's not what most people think of when you use the loaded term home invasion. She would really change who she was based on what fit the situation best at the time, said the roommate, Brittany Brooks, who lived with Luna for 6 months and was a close friend during her military service. Luna's congressional office did not provide answers to a detailed list of questions about her biography from the Washington Post. When approached in person on Capitol Hill last week, Luna claimed she had not received any inquiry from the Post and declined to comment further. On Friday, Luna's communications director, Edie Heipel, Heipel, let's guess at that pronunciation, emailed the Post calling the questions bizarre and stating, "Our office will not be responding to you any further." After the online publication of this story, Luna issued a statement through her attorney that said, "As I've said before, and as the Post has clearly showcased, anyone who is a conservative minority is a threat to leftist control. They can try to discredit me, but unfortunately for them, the facts completely blow their story out of the water." Luna's persona, as a hardline conservative who overcame steep personal odds, helped her flip Florida's newly redistricted 13th congressional seat red last year, riding the support of former President Donald Trump to victory over Democratic candidate Eric Lynn. She is part of a new class of House Republicans that includes many elected to public office for the first time, including Representative George Santos, whose fabrications about his biography emerged after his election. During her first week in Congress, Luna was part of a small group of Republicans who refused to elect Kevin McCarthy as House Speaker before earning major concessions and eventually switching her vote. Central to Luna's political identity is a dramatic life story laid out on her campaign website featuring disturbing experiences that left her with, quote, an armor that prepared her to fight for the American dream, as she has described it. She says she survived an armed robbery by age 9 and that her grandmother died of HIV/AIDS contracted from heroin use. She has asserted at times that her grandmother's husband and brothers died that way too, and also in 9/11 and in the Crusades. Sure. In text messages and emails to the Post, Luna's mother, Monica Luna, affirmed her daughter's accounts of those incidents. Anna's story is layered and complex because my story is layered and complex because it took me a very long time to get stabilized after a difficult childhood of my own and then naively getting involved in relationships that were not good for me, Monica Luna wrote. Next up, the broken home mentality section of the story. Luna was born Anna Paulina Meyerhofer in 1989 in Santa Ana, California. Her father, George Meyerhofer, was a drug addict, according to Luna and other family members, and he and Luna's mother never married. In campaign literature and in speaking engagements, Luna has routinely said her mother single-handedly raised her with no family to rely on. That broken home mentality really did provide me with a lot of insight as to what things work and what other things don't work, especially when it comes to policy. Luna said in her podcast in 2021, she also has said she and her mother lacked a strong extended network of people that could help care for them. I remember those struggles growing up, Luna said. Luna lived as a child in various apartments and homes in the Orange County cities of Irvine, Aliso Viejo, and Santa Ana, as well as the city of Los Angeles, according to public records. Luna also spent time in Tustin. I've never heard of Tustin, and Victorville while visiting her father, Monica Luna said. Oh, and by the way, I think I got pronunciation guidance on another of the, where the police shooting records had been destroyed in California, which looks to the, Spanish familiar and Spanish speaking as Vallejo, but is instead, what was the guide? It might be just like Vallejo or something. Is that how it was pronounced? It was described to me, I think, oh crap, I have to go back and look an email, I think, in order to find it. I might as well do it now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, right? So our friend on Daily Coast, SF, like San Francisco Bay Transplant, says, yeah, anglicized, it's no double LY sound, but no yo sound either. Oh, no J sound. Okay. Vallejo. So they go with Vallejo for that. Okay, so sorry to Vallejo, California, except I don't really owe you an apology because, quite honestly, hey, you destroyed all the records of your police shootings, so, to that extent, screw you. But okay, you deserve to have the name of the town done right because there are some, I assume, decent people there, though they may be getting shot by police along the way. All right, where were we? We were elsewhere in California. Victorville, Tustin? I don't know. Tustin. I'm feeling that's probably pronounced. I mean, there's not a whole lot of things you can do with that. But leave it to California to come up with something else. We're going to call this one Tustin, right? I don't know. Anyway, Monica Luna said she was the only source of meaningful financial support for the family and had to rely on welfare assistance for periods of time, especially as she was putting herself through college at the University of California at Irvine and UCLA Law School. So very impressive record for her. And, of course, all of that public assistance turned her daughter into a hardcore Republican who hates public assistance of all sorts somehow. I really don't know how or why. Although I would suggest that it was probably bad experience with the means testing more than anything else. I mean, there's a legitimate reason to be soured on public assistance after having benefited from public assistance. And it's usually how hard they make it on you to just live. Anyway, Anna had a life that looked like one thing, but in reality, there was a side that people don't know about, Monica Luna wrote. Other relatives have different recollections, saying Luna and her mother were supported by an extended family. The whole family kind of raised her. My dad was a part of her life when she was younger, and we all kind of coddled her, said Nicole Meyerhofer, a first cousin who is 3 years younger than Luna. She shared with the Post photos of the two girls growing up together and into early adulthood, including a snapshot from a family birthday party when they were young. She was always a part of everything, all these family gatherings and activities. So, that's a little weird. And let's see. Luna's paternal grandfather, Heinrich Meyerhofer, who sounds, pretty Hispanic, would pick her up from daycare when Monica Luna was studying, according to Nicole Meyerhofer's mother, Jolanta, or maybe Yolanta, I don't know. You never know how things are pronounced in California. She had everything, what she needed and more, said Yolanta Meyerhofer. And not only did Monica provide for her, but my father-in-law did too. Another family member who spoke on condition of anonymity to protect their privacy also said relatives were involved in Luna's life. And I don't know whether it was to protect privacy or whether it was the fact that the relative's name is Adolf Hitler Meyerhofer. I doubt that very much, but there's a chance. Anyway, for her part, Monica Luna disputed the accounts of Luna's cousin and aunt, or aunt, as many people say, saying Luna barely spent any time with them in her entire life, except for these pictures, I guess. And the pictures, by the way, in matching dresses in some cases, which is sort of interesting for people who never spend any time together ever in her entire life. For her part, Monica Luna disputed the accounts of the cousin, right, and saying they barely spent any time with them in her entire life, and called it a complete fabrication that Luna's grandfather provided for her daughter. Luna's biography on her campaign website says that throughout her childhood and teenage years, her father spent time in and out of incarceration, and that her communications with him during this time was through letters to jail and collect calls. The Post was not able to locate any public records of felony charges or prison sentences for George Meyerhofer in California, where Luna lived at the time. A spokesperson for the California Department of Corrections said they had no records that he served time in state facilities. George Meyerhofer, though, not around to answer questions. He died in a car accident in Walton County, Florida last year, according to a statement Luna posted on Twitter. According to Monica Luna and Yolanta Meyerhofer, George Meyerhofer had several short stints in jail for not paying child support. Monica Luna said he also spent at least 1 year in jail for a drug-related charge, and she said he served time in Orange County. A spokesperson for the Orange County Corrections Department and the Santa Ana Jail told the Post they had no records of incarceration for George Meyerhofer. That's sounding troublesome. In 1997, when Luna was around 8, her mother married a man who was a sales manager, according to the Orange County Register. At that time, Monica Luna worked as an elementary school teacher in the Santa Ana School District, where she was employed from 1997 to 2000, according to her resume, which of course means she was a communist groomer, as you know, because public school. All right. During that marriage, Monica Luna served as vice president of the Moms Club of Aliso Viejo North, unless they're saying Vallejo or whatever now in California, an international organization to support stay-at-home moms. Vice president of an organization to support stay-at-home moms, presumably not when she was not a stay-at-home mom, but during this marriage at some point. This, according to a 2004 Orange County Register article about a toy drive Monica Luna organized for children placed in foster homes. The article noted that Monica Luna's then 15-year-old daughter, Anna, helped pack boxes of donations for the drive at their home in Aliso Viejo. People should remember that we are fortunate and have so many blessings, Anna Luna told the reporter, taking care of foster children. Now that is so cool. And I'll agree, it is, but I mean, it's an interesting statement. We're fortunate, but maybe it was just a throwaway line. Now to the break-in, just before our break in this show. Luna ultimately decided to leave Los Angeles in 2009 when she was 19 and enlist in the Air Force, according to an account she gave in a 2021 podcast. So, not a bad choice, right? She saw how much I struggled and how much I worried about student loans that she joined the Air Force to try to build a life for herself, Monica Luna told the Post in a text. At Missouri's Whiteman Air Force Base, where Luna served as an airfield operations manager, some of her peers thought she came from a well-off family. She wore designer clothes. She probably should have been in uniform that whole time, and we are behind once again on the music. But she wore designer clothing and mentioned at times having nannies as a child, according to two former friends. They recalled her talking about her aspiration of being a Maxim magazine model. It's not a great aspiration, but I suppose it pays the bills. Wow, okay, well, that's a different path than, say, volunteering for the Air Force. Anyway, all right, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We come left blade, we come back blade, all sorts of things. All right, we were in the middle of the profile of and discussion of the shifting profile of Anna Paulina Luna, well, let's say, this is totally unfair probably, but hey, who cares? The female George Santos, in terms of maybe her background is totally made up. Anyway, we left off by saying that she had at the time, I mean, she's young, right? So 19, 20 years old, decides to join the Air Force probably as a method of maybe paying for college, or at least just avoiding mounting student loan debt. Not that she's sympathetic to anybody else's student loan debt for some reason. I don't know why. Some people come through these things with empathy for others, and others come out as hardened criminals, I guess, and hate everybody for some reason. But somewhere along the line, she decided, one, she wanted to be either in the Air Force or maybe later on a Maxim magazine model. What can you do? Teenagers, you know? According to a biography of Luna on the website of Turning Point USA, the conservative nonprofit where she worked, she, quote, modeled professionally as a means of paying for expenses that the GI Bill did not cover. Huh. I mean, I thought it was pretty generous, the GI Bill, and I think they still support the GI Bill, even on the Republican side. But I guess you do modeling to, I don't know what, for more money. Luna, whose mother's family is Mexican-American, at least that's true, I think, and paternal grandmother was born in Hidalgo, Mexico, now describes herself as Hispanic, which might be fair, and uses the Spanish pronunciation of her first name. Ah. Does that mean Ana as opposed to Anna? I don't know. Okay, well, fine. That's okay. Anyway, at Whiteman, we had different organizations for different groups, and we did have an active Hispanic population on the base. She wasn't a part of that, said Katie West, who served at the same time as Luna at Whiteman Air Force Base. I mean, it is white man, Air Force Base. Maybe you don't want to be part of the Hispanic population if you don't have to be. Anyway, I don't know. But also people discover things late in life. This is true, too. Even though it probably should have been pretty clear. Her mom was Mexican-American. Her grandmother was born in Mexico. But, I think I really can allow for emphasizing different aspects of your background at different points in time, even if it is politically motivated. I can understand doing that. I can. It happens a lot. I mean, when you make it a big part of your identity, that's a little unusual. It requires a little bit of explanation. Of course, if you're just lying about the circumstances of your background. I was poor and impoverished. Everyone can believe that because I'm Mexican American. But, did you have nannies? Did you have extended family that took care of you and gave you matching dresses with your cousins? Own up to that. That's all right. That's normal. It's good. You can talk about it in a good way, I'm sure. Anyway, where were we? Yes, right. Her friend Katie West said she really didn't identify as Hispanic at the time. I know that for sure because I had a lot of friends who were a part of that. She's kind of leaning into that now, but that was news to me. Those who knew her at the time said Luna was largely apolitical, but they say she expressed support for Obama, who was president at the time. Brooks, her roommate, described her as liberal. At the time, the two women were living in an off-base apartment in Warrensburg. Pictures and social media posts reviewed by the Post show Brooks and Luna shimmering in gowns at a gala, or gala, depending on your favorite pronunciation there, taking sneaky photos of each other napping in the back of a car, and posting on Facebook about their inside jokes and best friend status. Then a 2019 clip from a speaking engagement posted to Luna's YouTube channel, Luna said that when she was stationed at Whiteman, she experienced a home invasion at 4 a.m., saying that her landlord broke into the apartment. Had my friend Jeremy not been there to protect me, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be standing here in front of you guys right now, Luna added. My landlord was not breaking into my house at 4 a.m. to see how I was doing. But Brooks said in an interview that she was not aware of such an early morning incident taking place. Rather, she said there was a daytime break-in that occurred when Luna wasn't home. A report from the Warrensburg Police Department obtained by the Post describes the July 2010 episode as a burglary not in progress. At least it's when the cops got there, I guess that means it's over. Not a burglary in progress. It's not in progress. It happened, but it's not in progress. The incident occurred after Brooks and Luna reported to their landlord that they kept finding the rear door of the residence standing open, according to the police report. In response, the landlord changed the locks on the apartment and had deadbolts and latches installed, the report said. But the women continued to find the door standing open and unlocked. I think they had ghosts. Maybe it was that. They should have called Ghostbusters instead of the landlord. Anyway, that prompted them to temporarily stay elsewhere for several days, the report said, and it's not a bad call in that sense. But one day, Luna came by the apartment and sprinkled baby powder on the floor in front of the doors before leaving. I guess to capture tracks to see. But what happens if there's only one set of footprints? That's where Jesus was carrying the burglar. So you never, I don't know. Or, of course, no tracks means it's a ghost. Or dog footprints means it's Scooby-Doo looking for ghosts. So, there's all sorts of information. It was very smart of her to do. But it does sound like that wasn't a home invasion per se. Brooks, who is the only person named as being interviewed by the police after the break-in, returned later to check on the apartment and then called the police to report that, quote, someone had gained entry into her residence, according to the report. I don't know if it really was much of a gain. They didn't seem to report anything being taken. But what have you gained from this? Well, I've gained entrance, but no stereos or computers or anything good like that, apparently. When the police arrived, Brooks showed them what appeared to be a heavy tread left boot print in the powder exiting the premises, according to the police report. Interesting. Brooks, who is now a lawyer working with veterans at a legal aid clinic in Florida, told police that while nothing was missing from the residence, except one left boot, Her desk drawers had been opened and gone through, and there was also a used condom lying on the floor that Brooks advised was not from her. The landlord's name was redacted from the police report, and no suspect was ever arrested or charged in the case, according to police records. Luna has described how the enduring trauma of the break-in followed her when she moved to Florida. I mean, it does sound sketchy and gross, but, all right, not a home invasion. Anyway, but if those details hold up, yuck, but I don't know. Anyway, when I was stationed in Missouri, I had someone that broke into my house, Luna told reporters at her victory party on election night. I didn't have a firearm. Why not? You were in the armed forces. It wasn't until I got stationed in Florida that I got my concealed carry. Missouri is pretty open with the guns too, by the way. So I have lived in circumstances and in states where gun control was pushed. I'm not sure where. I mean, she's lived in California, and gun control was pushed there, but she wasn't seeking a firearm in California. She was interested in one in Missouri, where they were pretty liberal with their firearms, and didn't even bother making people go to firearms class for real in order to get their concealed carry permits. If you went to the right place, the trainers would just sign the papers that said you had the 8-hour training course, right? We remember that story from way back. Brooks said at the time of the break-in, both she and Luna had guns in the apartment that were given to them by Brooks's father. So they did have guns. It just, I don't know. Okay, so part of a fabricated story. Next up, becoming Luna. Luna spent 6 years in the military where she met her husband, Andrew Gamberski, an Air Force Special Operations veteran who was wounded during a second combat deployment. During her time in the military, she trained at Lackland and Keesler Air Force bases before she was assigned to Whiteman Air Force Base and then to Hurlburt Field, according to a spokesperson for the Air Force. She graduated from the University of West Florida in 2017 with a degree in biology. Throughout college and after leaving the Air Force, she worked at times as a model, a cocktail waitress at a gentleman's club. Hi, okay. And an Instagram influencer, which is not really a job unless, of course, you, get sugar daddies to send you money. Anyway, subscribers through Patreon. Thank you, sugar people of all genders and affiliations. I don't know what to say anymore, but I guess, I don't know. I don't know how you make your money as an Instagram influencer. Maybe you get sponsorships and things like that, but plus also probably people who subscribe and give you money. It's just a weird, area of the world that I try not to have anything to do with. For a period of time, she says she owned property in Washington state, according to public records. That's an interesting, corollary. We'll see whether there's any more developments in Washington there. Luna's rise to political prominence began in 2018 after online statements she made on human trafficking and the Second Amendment caught the attention of Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA. Kirk brought Luna on as the group's director of Hispanic engagement in August of that year, which is good because she's just realized that she was Hispanic, and so it worked out very well. A position that served as a launchpad for her unsuccessful bid for Congress against Charlie Crist in 2020. It was around that time that Luna began to embrace her Hispanic heritage publicly, because it got her a job. And, that's a good time for it. When Luna first registered to vote in Okaloosa County, Florida, in 2015, she identified herself as white, not of Hispanic origin. All right, well, that changed. But she marked her ethnicity as Hispanic when she updated her registration in 2019. That same year, at age 29, she filed a petition in Washington state, where she had some property, right, requesting to change her name to Luna. In the petition, which was reviewed by the Tampa Bay Times, Luna wrote that she wanted, quote, to represent my Hispanic heritage and have the same last name as my mother. Monica Luna told the Post that Luna was her mother's family name and that she herself recently took steps to make Luna legally part of her name as well. She disputed the idea that her daughter only recently started identifying with her Mexican ancestry. Anna and I Anna has never not identified as being Hispanic, as far as I know, except, of course, in her voter registration in Okaloosa County, Florida, where she checked white, not of Hispanic origin, but, she might not have told her mother about that. This she wrote in an email saying Luna's father spoke Spanish around her when she was a child. How do you like that? Meyerhofer. Anna can check both boxes, she added. She's bicultural and biracial. It's not easy to figure out what box to choose. I'm extremely proud of Anna for not only remembering, but embracing and identifying with her cultural heritage. I hope she encourages others to do the same. Monica Luna added, it would have been a lot easier for her to deny it. Not really. She certainly has been attacked again and again because of it. That I have not seen, but in Florida, it's pretty easy to get away with the Hispanic heritage. In fact, some people would say it holds an electoral advantage for you. Although, not necessarily Mexican, but, I think they're willing to overlook that. Anyway, apparently they are, because they elected her. Luna also stated on the campaign trail in an interview with Jewish Insider in November that while she identifies as Christian, because that's a lot easier to run with, she was raised as a Messianic Jew by her father. Oh boy, how do you like that? Messianic Jews, this is why I'm Jewish and that's exotic and it's good for Florida, but I'm a Christian Jew, so that's also good for MAGA conservatives and Hispanics. So that's a good way of settling the issue. Messianic Jews identify as Jewish, they're not, and say they believe that Jesus is the Messiah, which is the defining characteristic of a Christian, and in fact disqualifying as a Jew. But okay. I am also a small fraction Ashkenazi, she added, referring to Jews whose ancestors lived in Central or Eastern Europe. I have no doubt that's possible with Meyerhofer as a surname. Anyway, Luna's mother said her father was a Christian that embraced the Messianic faith. That is, a Christian who embraced Christianity, really, honestly. And it's a weird thing. And to move from Christian, like mainstream Christian, to Messianic Judaism, well, that's just appropriating Jewish practice and grafting it onto the fact that you're Christian. Okay. He eventually got clean, that's good, and started attending a Messianic Jewish church in Orange County. And that may explain things. I mean, coming out of drug addiction, if a weird or unusual minority sect wakes you up to the reality that you got to get clean, okay, you're going to have an affinity for that sect. Okay, well, I don't know whether that's really true, but it's an interesting story. Let's see. 3 members, though, of Luna's extended family said that her father was Catholic and that they were not aware of him practicing any form of Judaism when Luna was growing up. George Meyerhofer's father, Heinrich Meyerhofer, very Jewish, immigrated to Canada from Germany in 1954 and identified as Roman Catholic, according to an immigration record reviewed by The Post. According to several family members, Heinrich Meyerhofer, who died in 2003, served in the armed forces of Nazi Germany when he was a teenager in the 1940s. So I'm a little bit Jewish. My grandfather was a Nazi. I mean, I'm a little Ashkenazi. Wow, that's a stretch. One of his sons, Edward Meyerhofer, Luna's uncle, provided the Post what he said was a portrait of Heinrich Meyerhofer dressed in a uniform as a young soldier in Germany. Experts from the Simon Wiesenthal Center who reviewed the photo confirmed the uniform was consistent with that of a member of the Wehrmacht, which was the armed forces of Germany. Not, it was infused with Nazism, really, but your general conscripts to the Wehrmacht may not have been Nazi party members. That's not the same thing as serving in the SS, but okay, still. Anyway, it hurt for him to talk about it, she said. He said, you getting the letter, you need to oh, wait a minute, I've skipped something. Is that right? Yes, right. He was, consistent, his uniform is consistent with member of the Wehrmacht. Jolanta Meyerhofer, Edward's wife, said Heinrich Meyerhofer, who went by Henry, told her he had no choice but to serve the Nazi regime during the war. Probably true also. And here we begin. It hurt for him to talk about it. He said, you getting the letter, you needed to show up. Otherwise, your life is over. He did not like it, but that's what life was, getting drafted into the Nazi-era Wehrmacht. Monica Luna said she had never heard that Luna's grandfather had Nazi ties. She noted that Luna was estranged from Edward Meyerhofer, who said that who is the brother of Luna's father, and publicly raised inconsistencies in Luna's biography on social media during her first bid for Congress. In response, Luna filed a request for a stalking injunction against him in 2020. Edward, I guess. Luna has not publicly discussed Heinrich Meyerhofer, although she has noted that her maternal great-grandfather, Antonio Luna's service, she's noted his service in World War II on social media, tweeting in 2020 that he, quote, was at D-Day. I guess you should check that. Another great-grandfather, William Todd, the son of an American adventurer and a native of Colima, Mexico, also served during World War II with Arizona's 158th Infantry Regiment team, according to a 1952 article in the Arizona Daily Star. Nicole Meyerhofer, Luna's cousin, and other family members said it was well known in the family that Heinrich Meyerhofer served in the German army in World War II. She said her grandfather at times spoke of his experiences in the war. Yes, my grandfather did grow up that way, but when he decided to come to America and live here, even though he tried to remember where he came from, he was accepting of people of different races and religions. He was not anti-Semitic, Nicole Meyerhofer said. The relationship between the cousins deteriorated in 2020 after Luna filed the stalking injunction against Nicole Meyerhofer's father, according to Nicole. Since her election to Congress, Luna has drawn attention for declining to attend a White House reception for new House members because of the event's COVID-19 protocols, arguing in favor of allowing House members to carry firearms to committee meetings, because that always works out great, and accusing a reporter of sexually harassing her after he asked her questions while she left her office in the U.S. Capitol in January. Very sexy, that whole sexual harassment situation there, asking questions. I don't know, maybe the questions were inappropriate. I have no idea. It sounds like that might not have been sexual harassment, but it makes it for a splashier headline if you accuse people of that. I don't know. The new House Freedom Caucus member has compared Democrats' approach to human trafficking along the U.S.-Mexico border to human rights abuses in China. Calling on the United States to stop sending tanks to Ukraine and suggested criminalizing taxation, which doesn't sound like it follows at all, but okay. Luna also promised to tackle the issue of censorship, balance the budget, and launch a veterans coalition while sharing motivational messages about her journey to Washington along the way. I always tell people that you have two options in life. You can either choose to be the victor or the victim. Luna said in an interview last year, shortly before Election Day, I chose to be a victor. Well, people allowed her to be a victor. So, all right, fine. She chose it. Anyway, be interesting to know about the aspects of the accusations of sexual harassment. I mean, I suppose you got to be open to the possibility that it's real because you're supposed to believe that sort of stuff at the outset. But in context, I'm Ashkenazi. I'm a little bit Jewish. Well, Jew for Jesus. Well, maybe a Nazi. I don't know. It does make it difficult to believe all of her stories, I think. But I'd be willing to believe that one. Let's hear about it. I'd like to know. Now, I had a couple other pieces about her that I wanted to add to things. Let's see. We'll begin with this one here from Crooks and Liars. I noticed on social media yesterday they were sending this one around. Anna Paulina Luna likes to sick the law on people, it says. Representative Anna Paulina Luna has a Trumpy knack for making enemies and filing questionable, lawsuits here, and legal complaints against them. Oh, so I wonder if that has anything to do with the one about the reporter. Well, let's find out. Newshound Ellen, responsible for this content, CNL's own Ed Scarce, has already written up the recent discovery of Luna's lies that inevitably bring up comparisons to GOP colleague George Santos. She even seems to have lied about having Jewish roots. A 2022 article by Jacob Engels outlines what he describes as a history of abusing the legal system. I wouldn't go that far, but her behavior certainly warrants more scrutiny, says Ellen here. Before diving into the particulars, I will point out that Engels is a Roger Stone protege, so maybe don't bother reading his thing, who joined him in siding against Luna in a bizarre feud in the Florida primary for the seat Luna ultimately won. Oh, interesting. In other words, Engels is hardly my kind of go-to guy for information, but Engels has included in his article court documents that at least raise questions about Luna's character and at worst suggest an abuse of the legal system. First up are Luna's 2 complaints against females she claimed threatened to beat her up. In 2006, she got a temporary restraining order against a high school mate, she said assaulted and threatened her. The same document shows the case was dismissed because of Luna's failure to appear at a hearing. In 2013, Luna made similar claims against another woman who, according to Engels, her husband had once been involved with. Oh boy. Luna accused both females of calling her the B word, and threatening to beat her Can we really not say beat her ass? I don't know. Anyway, or bitch for that matter. I'm fortunate enough not to know how common this kind of threat is, nor do I make light of threats to anyone, but I do know that after an investigation, the sheriff and the Florida State Attorney's Office concluded the 2013 charges were unfounded. Also, as Engels wrote, it's odd for someone who supposedly fears for her safety not to show up at her own restraining order hearing. Unless you're just really petrified, I guess. Next was a 2021 temporary stalking injunction against what the Tampa Bay Times called a short-lived opponent named William Braddock, another restraining order stalking charge. Again, apparently a Roger Stone fan. It might be real then. Braddock really did make threatening remarks, but in that case, that it was dismissed because the judge said it did not meet the legal definition of stalking, the Times reported. However, the paper also pointed out that in her paperwork, Luna accused 2 other political rivals of working with Braddock, but never sought injunctions against them. Finally, there's the 2020 case in which Luna sought a protective order against her uncle, Edward Meyerhofer. Engels goes into detail about the case, which I won't go into here, but a few things stand out. One, Luna's own counsel states, this case deals with nothing more than an estranged uncle's personal attacks on his niece. The lawyer goes on to describe the alleged stalking, but it looks more like a matter of Luna not liking what he said about her. As the Washington Post put it, Luna's uncle publicly raised inconsistencies in Luna's biography on social media during her first bid for Congress. In response, Luna filed a request for a stalking injunction against him. It's not clear how or if it was resolved. Luna also claimed her uncle's obsession with her was racially motivated. So it's no surprise that after the Washington Post published its in-depth article calling into question many of her claims, she responded by accusing the Washington Post of being incredibly racist and threatening to sue. I don't know whether the Post was the reporter who was also accused of sexual harassment or not. So there's that weirdness hanging out there. One more piece that I guess will add to the puzzle. Is that what this is? Is this about Anna Paulina Luna? Yeah, I think it is. Twitter and Mastodon denizen Steve M, no more Mr. Steve M, that is, has this, is this Substack? Blogspot piece to offer up on an angle of the Luna story, entitled here, his title, Anti-Liberalism is the New Unification Church. It's an interesting way of putting it. The Washington Post's story about questionable details in the biography of newly elected Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna isn't nearly as enjoyable as the ongoing George Santos saga. The latest on Santos is that bad checks written on his account were passed to Amish dog breeders in exchange for puppies, which were then advertised as rescue dogs for some reason. When Santos spoke to prosecutors about the checks, he claimed to work for the Securities and Exchange Commission. What? And that the charges against him were dropped. Well, I'm doing a sting here against Amish dog breeders with bad checks? I don't understand. Nevertheless, Luna's story involves quite a bit of reinvention, if not quite a Santos-level personal reboot. And it says here, all right, this is quoting from the Post's story, which we've already read. So we can jump down to the end of the commentary here. The one-time Democrat and Obama fan had turned into this, and it's a picture of her posing in tight-fitting clothing and a tank top and holding up giant golden guns and AR-15s and stuff in front of an American flag, typical sort of fare. That's what she's turned into by the time of her first congressional campaign as a Florida Republican in 2020. Okay, very interesting. And there's one of her sitting on a throne in her camouflage, also with a giant gun. This kind of thing seems to be happening a lot these days. A person who's had a greater than average difficulties perhaps in establishing a self and whose personal reinventions are accompanied by dishonesty or psychologically unhealthy behavior ultimately finds mental peace and societal validation as an enemy of liberalism. In the past, people like this ended up in cult religions. Now they show up on Fox News, or better yet, in Congress. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. Hey, welcome back, everybody, by the way, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Joan McCarter is here. I was just asking her, as we were returning from break, do you know anything about Anna Paulina Luna? But she's read the story. She does seem a little, out there. This is where it becomes maybe Santos-like, is where it's like, I'm Jewish or maybe a Nazi. I'm not sure entirely what this is.
Well, I will say that at one point, the places like 23andMe and Ancestry and all those doing DNA tests
yes,
were giving that result to a lot of people.
Oh.
In fact, my mother got that result. That she had some Ashkenazi Jew. But as they've refined their testing, that went away.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. I guess certainly if she came out and said, well, apparently I'm wrong about that, but I was told that by, ancestry testing, I couldn't blame you for that. The interesting part was, I guess the explanation was, well, I'm sort of Jewish because my father got interested in Messianic Judaism.
Right.
Well, that's a little weird, a little iffy. And then, of course, I have, Central European ancestry, but it turns out, I don't know whether she found anything out about it from genetic testing or where she gets the Ashkenazi
she just
thing.
Went with her dad's conversion.
I guess so. I mean, that's not Ashkenazi or anything. I mean, there's no, ethnicity
you were
connected
not
with that.
Jewish if you convert, not ethnically Jewish.
Yeah. And also,
your father converts.
As it turns out, her grandfather, Heinrich Meyerhofer, serving in the Nazi era Wehrmacht, is so maybe not a Nazi party member, but it doesn't do anything for your Judaism profile. It just really doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
But anyway, I thought that was interesting, and then we concluded by reading some commentary on sort of how this keeps happening over and over again. There's George Santos, now there's her, then people in the No More Mr. Nice blog over here pointing out this appears to be a repeating pattern for a lot of people who find themselves landing eventually in extreme illiberal MAGA republicanism is the solution for a great many of these people. They sort of find themselves at last and find the validation they need by saying outrageous things and finding out that people will give me money and vote for me and give me a job. So
I can land up in Congress.
Yeah. So she's there. Santos is there. The other examples thrown out here, Tara Reid, who sort of made a name for herself by alleging sexual harassment by Joe Biden and got all sorts of financial support to do so. Marjorie Taylor Greene, leading, as they say here, a rather ordinary suburban life until her marriage starts falling apart. And then all of a sudden, in quick succession and in this order, apparently, discovered extreme fitness, QAnon, right-wing media self-promotion, and the cult of Donald Trump, and might now be, leading the Speaker of the House around on a leash and getting set to run for president or something in the near future. So, people sort of find themselves and find careers in saying outrageous and offensive things and taking out their frustrations on somebody else, and there's a party that rewards that, and it's terrible news. But this even harkens back to Jeff Gannon, way back, doing the same sort of thing and finding that he found a career for himself by just pretending to be an outrageous Republican conservative, and people will throw money at you for that. Not for this, but for that.
And now he's the norm.
Yeah, right. So
that model is how
succeeded.
You become a Republican.
Right. Now it's
whatever, congressperson, pundit, whatever.
Yeah, I don't even know I wonder what he is doing now, but I'm thinking about like the Talon News organization that they kind of faked up in order to get him some credentials. Now there's 10 of them and they have cable channels. And if you throw them off your cable lineup, people protest now. So anyway, it's pretty wild. Anyway, early morning, the birds are out, I hear.
Yes.
Phew, that's nice.
That's on your side.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I can't tell. It sounds like it's coming through my headphones. Maybe it is. You're right. Yeah, it's being picked up right outside my. The headphones make it impossible for me to hear it through the window, but I do hear it through the microphone. That might be our Carolina wren or whatever that comes, or warbler wren. I can't remember which one it was. There's one that just sits there and screams.
That's
Right. Well,
feed me.
Right. Or
feed me.
Elect me to Congress. That's another possibility.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, so what's going on there? You sound a little like both of us are recovering from our colds. That's nice.
We're recovering. It turned out to be a sinus infection, and I'm finished the antibiotics. We'll see if that did the trick.
Okay.
Possibly living with 3 animals doesn't help.
Yeah. All right. Well, that could be. All right. But you powered through the State of the Union last week.
And it was tremendous fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it turned out to be better coverage time than usual. Usually kind of boring, but that one
usually kind of or Trumpy.
Yeah, all right. Oh, yeah,
certainly
right.
better
That's not boring, but
it is
bad.
It was fun.
Good.
It really was. A kick in the pants watching Biden lead them down the garden path and trap them all into standing up and giving Social Security and Medicare a standing ovation.
Yeah. So that'll make that made news and made everybody feel good, and maybe it'll be used against them at some point. They'll be hypocritical, but whatever. That's expected.
It
was a good move
by any means that Republicans are going to stop talking about cutting Social Security and Medicare, or reforming and saving the programs, as they like to say.
Yeah, well, right. That way,
by putting all of the money in them into private.
Yes.
Profit-seeking hands.
Right. They're going to save it by putting all of the money in my savings account.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's the usual path, but it was certainly great for him to parry the heckling and then turn it into a moment where he, seized control and got everybody to stand up and applaud for not cutting. So, all right, they'll look terrible later.
Well, they'll look terrible regardless. But,
Yes.
the big concern, and I've seen a number of healthcare people talking about it besides me, is Medicaid. Because, he didn't slip that third program into his spiel.
That's too bad. All right.
And that's a very large pot of money that Republicans hate spending.
I can imagine.
So that's going to be a big target for them. We still don't have a plan from Republicans about how they're going to balance the budget in 10 years, because there can't be a plan for that, because it's not possible, particularly if you rule out tax increases, cuts to defense, cuts to veterans programs, and Social Security and Medicare. If you hold all of those things safe, you really can't balance a budget in 10 years unless you stop spending on pretty much everything else.
Yeah.
And, they probably know that. I mean, not all of them are really smart enough to have figured this stuff out, but Republicans know that. But they're already setting their sights on Medicaid for cuts.
Okay, well.
Just out less spending for Medicaid, but also doing things like trying to block grant it again. One of their regular efforts. How Medicaid works is it's a state and federal partnership. States put in some money. The feds put in the bulk of the money. And it is open-ended. They spend as they need to respond to things like pandemics.
Yes.
What Republicans have wanted to do for a very long time, going at least as far back as Reagan, is turning it into a block grant. This is the chunk of money you get as a state. You have to figure out how to spend it, and when it's gone, it's gone. Mm-hmm. The other thing that probably they'll push for, Matt Gaetz is already talking about it, is putting work requirements on it.
Oh, well, naturally, sure. They love to try and do that too.
The majority of people, particularly those who've signed up under expansion with Obamacare, work.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a thing. We've known that for a really long time, that these people are already working. Putting the work requirement on them makes them have to do a lot of stupid red tape, jumping through hoops to prove that they're working.
Right.
And their failure to do these jumping through hoops exactly the right way means that they'll lose their Medicaid, and that is bad.
Yeah. So the bulk of your work becomes filling out paperwork or waiting for caseworkers.
Right.
And occasionally actually working someplace as well.
And, depends on the state system tracking this to actually work, to have your information uploaded into the database. And, in some instances, Arkansas tried it under a waiver from the Trump administration that said, okay, we're going to let you do work requirements for the Medicaid expansion under the ACA. Arkansas was surprisingly one of the states that did really well with it in the beginning, Medicaid expansion. Then they decided to slap the work requirement on. A judge rescinded that, blocked it from going forward. So they had about 8 months to a year of sort of experimentation with that, and found that, it didn't increase people working. There wasn't any great uptake in jobs, but a lot of people lost their coverage. And as a result, a lot of people got sicker.
Well, yeah, that's very often strangely, the outcome from Republican meddling in programs is that it ends up hurting a lot of people. That's sort of the new Republican mantra, and I've noted that a couple of times that we've moved, and a couple of people have made this point that we've evolved from Ronald Reagan's "government can't help you" to Donald Trump's "government should hurt you." Yes. We should use the government to hurt people we don't like. In between,
we had compassionate conservatism from the Bushes.
Yeah, briefly, right. Well, they did say that. That was a line of theirs. They weren't particularly good at it, but yeah,
No.
this
They
ends
paid
up
lip
being the
service
case.
at least.
Yeah, that was
Now
nice of them to
it's,
do.
as people have said, the suffering is the point.
Yeah. So, well, so that's
So
their next
I
disaster.
would like
in the
to
making.
see, I
You
think
can block it.
probably they're not going to, well, it's not going to get through the Senate, anything like
Right.
this, although Joe Manchin certainly is work requirement curious
Yes.
because he's Joe Manchin.
Right. He needs people to work for him.
I don't think it'll go anywhere, but this is sort of my one moment of disquiet in all of this, that something with Medicaid is going to be on the table, because nobody has said it's not so far.
All right.
Biden does have a lot of plans for Medicaid. One of the things that he's done, which is sort of interesting, is expanded it into helping cover food costs for folks.
All right.
So Medicaid money can be spent on healthy food for people to help battle chronic illnesses.
Well, that makes sense. It's often, if not prescribed per se, it's often suggested that, well, I mean, I don't think it takes any great leap of intellect to figure out the connection between healthy eating and health. It's right in the name. Yeah, okay. So that makes some
Making it
sense.
easier to be healthy by having access to healthy food is a smart
If you
thing.
can.
So there's commitment from the Biden administration to the program. He also, when he went to Florida, hit DeSantis and previous Florida Republican governors for refusing to take Medicaid expansion. So,
good.
In his beating up on Rick Scott when he went to Florida last week, he included Medicaid expansion as an example of something that they've withheld from the people and something that could make a big difference.
Yeah.
So, his commitment to the program's there. He just hasn't been hammering on it, and I would like to see a little bit more public support for it from Biden and from other Democrats, just to say, okay, this is also something that is
I see what you mean.
not up for your meddling.
Yeah, and I suppose the more you call on them to do it, and if it doesn't happen, then you start to suspect, do they have plans for this? This isn't something I've heard that they've wanted to cut, and in fact, these expressed support for expansion of the program, but why does he keep declining the opportunity to say, oh yeah, Medicaid too?
Yeah.
All right. I guess we got to be on the lookout for that.
Let's be on the lookout for that. Let's just keep that on the radar.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Not for
good
the next
spot.
2 weeks because
Oh.
the House is out.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well,
They're
we'll see if they go
taking
home
their
and speak about
traditional
that.
18-day President's Day holiday.
Oh, okay. Is that I was like, wait a minute, what do we got here? Valentine's Day? Like, is this Coons
So
again?
that's when you can't have when you can't have testimony in an impeachment hearing.
Yeah, right. So, okay. So it's that. So, all right. You can't have any witnesses for Valentine's Day, but for President's Day, you're off for 2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
I get
The
you.
Senate is not. The Senate's in.
Yeah.
Just the House.
Well, even poor Chris
if
Coons, what's he going to do?
Gave any credit to Republicans for being thinkers in the House, I would say that's
careful.
a smart way of derailing a discharge petition on increasing the debt limit with a clean bill.
Okay. So a extended recess because they actually
Makes that a lot harder.
It never sounded like they were going to get the signatures that they needed, but okay.
Yeah. I think it's pretty much, the door is pretty much closed on a discharge petition on this one. They're just the 218 and the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a possibility that they were strategizing about that, or they just wanted everybody to, have extra time at home to shore themselves up, or they don't have any business to conduct, so we might as well stay on recess an extra week, say, and not make it obvious that we have nothing to do. I don't know. Could be any number of things, I suppose. Oop, are you on mute there? Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. No,
Oh.
I was getting pinged on a
Okay.
FCC thing.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's what's happening
Sure.
today in the Senate. The most interesting thing happening today in the Senate.
FCC.
Gigi Sohn is finally getting her third confirmation hearing in the Commerce Committee. Gigi Sohn is a consumer advocate. She's a lawyer. She was Tom Wheeler's counsel at the FCC when they finally decided to say, okay, yes, let's have net neutrality.
Net neutrality. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's back.
Hey, all right.
It kind of still exists, but it actually doesn't, because the FCC, since Biden came in, has been deadlocked with just 4 commissioners.
Okay.
2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. And Big Telecom has successfully kept Gigi Sohn as the 5th commissioner off the board.
Huh.
With a variety of really, really horrible tactics.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The most recent, putting out this smear campaign. It's not even a whisper campaign, because the likes of Breitbart and I can't remember what other horrible right-wing outlets
They don't whisper.
have prefaced this by saying she's an out lesbian.
Okay.
No
in their world,
bones
of
about
course.
the fact that she is married to a woman, that she has a family, and that she's out. So what, of course, do we get from the right-wing smear people? She's basically a groomer.
Oh, yes. That's what they'll say about anybody.
It's
right?
convoluted. It's awful. It's homophobic and fear-mongering, and it's awful. And, of course, they will use anything to try to stop this nominee, who will help see all of Biden's great plans for the FCC come to fruition, like having net neutrality, like being able to use all of the stuff that they got into the Inflation Reduction Act and the one before that, the big one, which name escapes me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, me too. Now that you
Anyway,
said it.
all of the broadband
Because you said that, I
infrastructure
blanked.
stuff.
Okay.
And the follow-up
Broadcast,
bill
eh?
from infrastructure. There's a lot in that is broadband expansion, access for underserved communities, lots and lots of very good stuff that the telecoms don't particularly like, because it's not particularly profitable for them. They don't want to see this stuff happen, so they keep the FCC deadlocked. The FCC can't write and promulgate the rules and the regulations, and they get away with a lot. So this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Getting Gigi Sohn finally confirmed. The 51 votes that Schumer has now could make that more of a reality.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody has to do
The
their
efforts,
job.
the homophobic efforts could backfire a little bit and get Sinema, she's voted for in committee, but has not been supportive of her getting a floor vote. That could be the thing that pushes Sinema into saying, okay. 2 others, Cortez Masto and Mark Kelly, have been a little whiffy on her, but they just won re-election, so
Okay. Right. So
that
be free
that
to do
opposition could be gone. So that leaves Manchin. And if Sinema and the other 2 are fine with it, Manchin probably won't raise hell, and could reject the horrible tactics we've seen from the right.
That would be
So
nice
that's
and a
where
good
we're at.
chance to do so.
All these years later, we're still fighting for net neutrality. It's just in a different battleground.
Yeah. Well, interesting that back again, and the analysis of what Manchin will do is a good one too. Yeah, I imagine if he were all alone in opposing her among Democrats, I mean, it's a good chance to go along with the flow and to be able to have another one of those votes. This one doesn't, matter that much to him. He can say, "Look, I'm still a reasonably reliable Democratic vote on the whole." Which is his, the thing he uses to save himself every time he does something outrageous. So here's an opportunity to put another one, in the quiver there. So, all right.
So that's the big happenings in the
Yeah.
Senate, at least for
It's
today.
the only happenings, I guess, right? Okay.
And it'll probably just be more, confirmation votes that they do
Not
this
a
week,
bad thing.
because what else are they going to do?
Right. Stay on break when in the House. Every time the Republicans take an extended break, the Senate can work on nominations. I guess that's not a bad plan for us.
No,
I'll take
it's
it.
not.
Okay.
But the other thing that's going to happen in the Senate is undoubtedly more sniping between Mitch McConnell and Rick Scott, which is... I never thought I'd see Mitch McConnell doing something I actually appreciated. But not only did he demote Rick Scott, take him off of the Commerce Committee, back to the Commerce Committee, which is having the hearing today on Gigi Sohn, leaving Ted Cruz standing alone as the horrible person, but he's certainly capable of picking up that mantle.
Yes, I'm practiced.
Yes. So he kicked Rick Scott off of Commerce and didn't give him another committee.
Okay.
He also kicked off Mike Lee, which I find very fun, and Josh Hawley, all of whom supported Rick Scott's attempt to wrest leadership away from McConnell last year.
Okay, I see. Oh, all right. Very Machiavellian of him.
Very Machiavellian of him. And I almost forgive him for being the cause of the long delay in the Senate having its organizing resolution done.
Yes, well, that's his favorite pastime every 2 years these days. Was that you forgive him because the outcome was I was doing the seating charts and getting rid of Mike Lee and
I was
Rick
stabbing
Scott.
Rick Scott and Mike Lee in the back. Yes. And
Yeah,
Josh
all right.
Hawley.
I'm not certain what I guess the Mike Lee motivation is. Yeah, if he were trying to depose him as leader. Rick Scott, of course, is an albatross for them over his sunsetting plan that he denies ever having written, but Mitch McConnell acknowledges that it was real, so that's also helpful. Not just kicking him off the committees.
No, Rick Scott doesn't deny he wrote it. He says he wrote it, but and still says, well, no, it's not going to be Medicare and Social Security, except it is Medicare and Social Security, but I don't want them cut, except I think that if they're good enough programs, we can vote on them every 5 years.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of dishonesty coming from Rick Scott on where he's at on that one.
Yes, for sure. I saw the recent clips of him on one or the other of the Sunday shows, unable to acknowledge the difference between sunsetting and reauthorizing Social Security every 5 years and changing allowing for competitive bidding on drug prices to lower the programmatic cost of these programs and say, well, that's a cut. How come?
That's a cut. Jake Tapper says so.
No, it's not.
Did you see the crazy CNN interview, the Jake Tapper thing?
I didn't see the Jake Tapper one, but I saw them referring to the Jake Tapper one.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Okay.
But Jake Tapper says, that was the strangest interview.
Yeah. What does Jake Tapper say about that reference to Jake Tapper so frequently? I don't know. Okay. That was very weird. And I mean, it's just like, I guess if you're just not going to acknowledge like the way money works, then I don't see how we're going to discuss this with you. But yeah, that seemed like, it seems like he's rather desperate. And I guess he must be feeling it that McConnell is knocking all the support out from under him as well, which is fine by me.
It's fine by me, who's more deserving. But it really has been sort of interesting to watch McConnell directly go after him and say, look, he's running for re-election in Florida in 2024, and he wants to cut Social Security and Medicare in Florida?
Yeah, it might be considered a backhanded help.
Looking at McConnell saying, this is his election, I am opposing him. He is up for re-election. This could be my majority, and I'm still going to kneecap him.
Yeah, I wonder who he has in mind. If he has anybody in mind to run, do we know anything about that? Does he?
We don't know anything about that, but it's fun to think about.
Yeah. Well, he's got to be. I mean, there's not that many more chances left for a majority for McConnell. He can't build a majority. He can't live forever, I think, right? I'm pretty sure about that. They're weirdos on that side, but you never know. But, he might be worried about that. I mean, the criticism about him has been, that he's been too accepting of the hand he's been dealt when it comes to candidates. Maybe he's trying to involve himself early in the Florida situation to say, maybe there ought to be a primary. You can't have a guy with this position running in Florida. We're going to lose.
He might be.
Now, what an amazing admission that would be.
Is this McConnell's last 2 years of this term?
I don't know. But is there a cuckoo at the end of this clock thing?
Well, and at what point is he going to retire?
Yeah, I don't...
Decide that he's done enough damage.
Yeah, where is he in his terms? I don't know. We'll have to think about that. But I feel like he just was elected not that long ago. He might be sort of middle of his term. But I don't keep track on it. He's just a guy I can't... who feels like you'll never get rid of him, so I don't look.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll check. Keep an eye
2006.
All right, so...
6, 12, 18. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. He's got to... Maybe this is his last hurrah.
It might be his last hurrah. He's not a kid.
Well, yeah, that's true. And he's every step he takes around the house is dangerous these days for him. Okay. Well, thank you, Joan, for highlighting these things. We'll keep an eye on all of what's happening. And now you know what you're watching in the Senate. You don't have to turn on C-SPAN. You got to turn on C-SPAN 2 if you want to see something happen.
Yep.
All right. And very good. We'll check in with you next week. Will the House be returning at that point, or are we?
No.
No, still out. Okay.
Still out.
So this is a very recent...
Because next week is actually President's Day.
Oh, okay. You know what? That's another thing I don't pay any attention to anymore either. Oh, every once in a while. Monday is off for people? Okay, that's nice. But for me, it makes no difference. All right. Thanks, Joan. We'll check in with you again next week while they're still out.
All right.
Take care.
From
we turn now, of course,
networksradio.com.
to the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy.
You've been listening to Kagro in the morning.
That's right.
David Waldman.
And coming up next, the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Justice Putnam. Here's what's on tap. The same unnerving authoritarian patterns used by authoritarians around the world are also being seen here from right-wing United States governors. Guess who I have in mind when we think about that? Yes, sure, Florida, but Virginia too.